Monsieur le Président, Honorable Commissaire, Mesdames et Messieurs, délégués des États, Mesdames et Messieurs, distingués délégués. Zimlawyers for Human Rights présente cette déclaration sur les défense des droits humains au Zimbabwe. Nous saluons les efforts déployés par le gouvernement du Zimbabwe pour remplir ses obligations en matière de submission des rapports au titre des différents traités des Nations Unies. En mars 2025, Zimbabwe a participé à un dialogue constructif avec le Comité des droits de l'homme des Nations Unies, qui a évalué le respect par les pays du pacte international relatif aux droits civils et politiques. Le Comité des droits de l'homme des Nations Unies a soulevé à juste titre les mêmes préoccupations que celles que nous avons exprimées devant cette honorable commission. Nous ne reviendrons pas sur ces questions, mais nous nous concentrerons sur les recommandations pratiques. Maintenant, je vais passer en anglais parce que le français est compliqué. Therefore, Zimbabweans for Human Rights urges the African Commission to call upon the government of Zimbabwe to implement all recommendations made by the United Nations Human Rights Committee, particularly on taking action to combat all forms of threats, harassment, intimidation, and violence against journalists, media workers, and human rights defenders, and take all measures necessary to ensure they are free to carry out their work without fear of violence or reprisals of any kind. Secondly, ensuring that human rights violations against human rights defenders, journalists, media workers are thoroughly, impartially, and independently investigated, and perpetrators are held accountable and punished if guilty. Thirdly, repealing Section 22A of the Criminal Law Codification and Reform Act, that is referred to as the Patriotic Act. Fourthly, repealing the Private Voluntary Organizations Amendment Act that was passed a month later against the advice of the United Nations Human Rights Committee, which noted that the bill would potentially restrict civic space. Fifthly, the committee raised concerns about the government's approach to handling peaceful protests, which was often heavy-handed. We also call on the government of Zimbabwe to fully implement all the recommendations by this Honorable Commission in the concluding observations on the 16th periodic report of the government of Zimbabwe assessing the implementation of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights from 2019 to 2023, and the second report under the Protocol on the Rights of Women in Africa, especially adopting the law to protect human rights defenders in Zimbabwe and encouraging the government to strengthen measures to protect human rights defenders from reprisals, intimidation, and judicial harassment. In conclusion, we encourage the government of Zimbabwe to submit all outstanding reports to all the charter or treaty-based mechanisms of the United Nations or the African Union, and we also encourage them to offer their reports in time. The Human Rights Committee report was submitted after 20 years of not responding to the requests for reports. I thank you, Mr. President. Sande sana, shukran. Muito obrigado.